Hey everybody, this is Will here, and I just want to take a moment to talk about Bumblebee. We're not going to go into the reception of the previous Transformers movies with a whole lot of detail. I think it's pretty obvious where critics and a large portion of audiences stand on this franchise. They tend to do pretty well commercially, the exception being the last film in the franchise, Transformers: The Last Night, which apparently didn't perform as well as the studio was hoping, despite still making a boatload of money. My personal opinion is that Transformers: The Last Night was the worst film in the entire series. People really dumped on Age of Extinction, but I at least found that one entertaining in a sort of inept way. The Last Night wasn't even funny in a bad way. It just was boring, and yeah, hated the movie. Everything about it. One of the worst movies I maybe have ever seen. So suffice to say, when they announced a Bumblebee spin-off movie, I wasn't necessarily jumping up and down. Yeah, there's no reason to really be excited about another Transformers film. That is until I heard that Cubo and the Two Strings director Travis Knight was going to be helming the project. Despite not having a whole lot of movies under his belt, the one movie that he does have under his belt was exceptionally good. And I figured, hey, anything's got to be better than Michael Bay, right? And the early reviews are pretty great. It's the first Transformers movie to earn a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and by a pretty large margin. I think it's currently sitting at like a 93 or a 94 right now, which is exceptionally well. So I thought I'd check it out for myself, and yeah, it's pretty darn good. Not necessarily exceptional or outstanding, but definitely good, which is pretty surprising given the nature of this franchise. The film stars Haley Steinfeld. Her character's name is Charlie, and she is an 18-year-old who wants to buy a car. And yes, the basic premise of this movie is very similar to Michael Bay's original film. The difference here being that Knight really kind of keeps the movie focused on sort of this sweet girl and machine type story, whereas Michael Bay devolved pretty quickly into awkward comedy and over-the-top action sequences. That's not to say this movie doesn't deliver on the action front either, however. The opening 5 minutes are maybe my favorite in any of these Transformers movies thus far. It opens up on war-torn Cybertron, and it's awesome. There's Generation 1 style Transformers just going at it, and it's pretty sweet. I'm a huge fan of the original cartoon. You know, it's kind of cheesy and not especially well written, obviously just designed to sell toys. But something that I really enjoyed about this movie is that it pays homage to it without necessarily lowering the standard of filmmaking or the quality of writing in the process. Steinfeld is really well cast in the lead role. She was a very enjoyable character, a bit complicated, a little bit angsty, and, you know. But I did like her character a lot, certainly a lot more than the previous human leads that we've had in the series so far. And another thing that this movie does really fantastically is that there isn't too many characters to deal with. You know, we have our human lead and we have Bumblebee. And most of the scenes in the movie deal with the two of them and a couple of other characters who come along the way. John Cena's in this movie also, and his role is great. It's perfectly well written for him and his sort of acting range. He just gets to sort of play this sort of stereotypical military guy, and it works really well within the context of the film. That isn't to say this movie doesn't have some issues, however. It's highly derivative of a lot of 80s type of movies, which is a little bit what it's going for and paying homage to, but it basically follows beat for beat the plot for E.T. It also took a little bit of time for the movie to gain traction for me. I wasn't necessarily sure where it was going for a bit, but once it sort of settled into the core relationship of the movie, I found myself enjoying it a lot. Really, it is that core relationship which sort of makes the flaws in this movie more redeemable, whether that be some occasionally like just sort of forced writing or some just kind of general meandering. Because Charlie and Bumblebee are a good like pairing together. It's a lot of fun to see the two interact. It's fun. This is like the first movie where it really kind of explores the fantasy of like what a teenager would probably do if they found a giant robot. There's a great scene in this movie where they take Bumblebee out and use him to help prank this kind of Mean Girls type character, and it killed the whole theater. Above all else too, this movie is just kind of fun. And not in a way where you really feel like you have to turn your brain off. It's very well directed. It's decently well written. Some of the dialogue, like I said beforehand, felt a little bit forced in some ways and kind of falls into a little bit of an uncanny valley of like, you're sort of getting to what a teenager would say, but it does feel like it doesn't feel entirely authentic. But all in all, it's not a bad movie at all. In fact, it's a good one, a very good one in a lot of ways. I think that it lacks a certain quality to really push it into greatness or, a sort of exceptional state. But as far as the Transformers movies go, this is a massive leap in the right direction. And if they continue their plans moving forward to do movies more like this, I might find myself a little bit more interested. I just read today that they're planning a Cybertron spin-off movie. That'd be pretty sick, not gonna lie. So yeah, Bumblebee, it's worth seeing. I'm gonna probably give it a B. Didn't necessarily knock my socks off, but considering the history of this franchise, it's nice seeing a Transformers movie that makes sense and has a lot of heart in it. Here's hoping it becomes the trend for the future. All right, fam, that's it for now. Peace.